Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock on November 3rd, Thursday, and this is the City of Greenfield ARPA allocation workshop. Thank you for tuning in or being in the audience. My name is Paul Wood, the city manager of the City of Greenfield. I cannot actually physically be there today because I'm in Monterey for a day-and-a-half long-range planning workshop for our insurance pool. So I will be here via Zoom, but we hope to get everybody's questions answered and get out a lot of information today. First thing we want to say is, this is all about the American Recovery Plan Act grants that were given to cities and towns all across the United States back in 2020. There was 350 billion. I think the total amount given out in the ARPA was about 1.9 trillion. 350 billion was for eligible state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to respond to the COVID-19 emergency and to bring back jobs. The city of Greenfield over the past 2 years has received 4.1 million. The first tranche of a little over 2 million we received in July of 2021, and the second tranche we received of the same amount in July of 2022. This money is to go to help stimulate agencies all over America, and by statute they say it must be obligated by December 31st of 2024. And what that means basically is we need to decide what we're going to be using our money for. And there are guidelines, which that's the point of this exercise, as well as to get input from the community as to what, following those guidelines, what they would like to see the money spent on. So it must be obligated by December 31st, and actually the projects that we choose to produce with it must be completed by December 31st of 2026. The authorized uses are limited, and the uses are going to be varied depending on the individual city needs. But two things that we've decided already at a staff level is we want to use it in these monies in conjunction with our new grant writing capacity. And what that is we've actually hired an outside firm to keep track of and to help us apply for and manage grants. The other thing that we've kind of decided on is that we want to spend it on one-time expenditures. Whenever, as a general rule, financially, whenever you get what's referred to as one-time money, meaning it's not going to be repeated year after year, it's a good practice to spend those monies on one-time expenditures. You don't want to go out and hire people that will be expenditures for potentially years to come without having a funding source identified. And since these are one-time revenues, we basically want to focus on one-time expenditures. The authorized uses that are dictated by the federal government is really revolve around the pandemic, mostly around the COVID-19 pandemic, and supporting kind of getting back to normal, as it were. The COVID-19 for 2 years has wreaked havoc on agencies all over the world, really. And so this money is really to help reinvigorate individual cities, towns, counties, etc. So the first thing is to support a public health response. What does that mean? Well, I've got some examples for you on the upcoming slides, but it's really about trying to get us healthy again, whether it's mental health, behavioral health, or just physical health. The second thing is they said we realized that the public sector revenue probably had losses, and so this is supposed to replace that. You'll see that for Greenfield we did have revenue losses, but it wasn't like other places. like the peninsula, which is a very much a tourist type of cities and towns, where because travel was very much shut off, lots of people did not go on vacation, and so the normal revenue streams for those cities suffered quite substantially. They also said we can improve water and sewer infrastructure. That is something that doesn't seem to be COVID related, but it's a big area. And for us in Greenfield, it's actually a big area of need for us, is to improve our water and sewer infrastructure. Also, to address negative economic impacts, you'll see some examples of that as well. Paid bonuses to essential workers, and those workers would be city workers, and to upgrade broadband infrastructure. So going back up to the top of that list, public health response. This is a listing of things that they're talking about when we look at responding to the public health aspects of COVID. I'm trying to move this so I can see it myself. Here we go. Public communication efforts, enhancement to healthcare capacity, including through alternative care facilities, purchases of personal protective equipment, support for prevention, mitigation, or other services in congregate living facilities like nursing homes, incarceration settings, homeless shelters, group living facilities, and other key settings like schools. Ventilation improvements in congregate settings like those that were described above. Healthcare settings or other key locations. Enhancement of public health data systems and other public health responses. Those are more county focused because the county is responsible for county health, although cities have been pitching in. Capital investments in public facilities to meet pandemic operational needs are also eligible, such as physical plant improvements to public hospitals and health clinics, or adaptations to public buildings to implement COVID-19 mitigation tactics. Some of those things are listed above, like ventilation systems and personal protective equipment, things like that. This money can also be used to assist negative economic impacts to households. And some of the things that they list there are food assistance, which the city has taken part in the past and is currently doing, rent, mortgage, or utility assistance, which we're doing rent and utility assistance now through a grant through the United Way. Counseling and legal aid to prevent eviction or homelessness. Cash assistance, cash transfers must be reasonably proportional to the negative economic impact they are intended to address. So this is not a cash giveaway to people who apply, it's cash assistance to those people who have been affected by COVID-19 negatively. And so there are obviously tests that have to be run to see who qualifies for that. Emergency assistance for burials, home repairs, weatherization, or other needs, once again, as a consequence of COVID-19. Internet access or digital literacy assistance, job training to address negative economic or public health impacts experienced due to a worker's occupation or level of training. Other eligible use categories related to small businesses and nonprofits included grants or loans to mitigate hardships, financial hardships, such as declines in revenues or impacts of periods of business closure, for example, by supporting payroll and benefit costs, costs to retain employees, mortgage, rent, or utility costs, and other operating costs, or loans, grants, or in-kind assistance to implement COVID-19 prevention or mitigation tactics, such as physical plant changes to enable social distancing, enhanced cleaning efforts, barriers or partitions, COVID-19 vaccination, testing, or contact tracing programs, and technical assistance, counseling, or other services to assist with business planning needs. the recipients of these monies should maintain records to support their assessment of how their businesses or business districts receiving the assistance were affected by the negative economic impact of the pandemic and how the aid provided responses to these impacts. So this is really, while this money is available, it's things like this, grants and loans, have been available in the past. And just to know that anybody who decided they wanted to apply for this assistance would have to make sure that they have the records to support the losses that they're claiming. Ineligible use categories, most of the time, the public these don't affect them. It cannot be used to pay down unfunded pension obligation liabilities or to apply as matching funds towards other federal grants. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit after this. Pay interest or principal on outstanding debt, for consent decrees or legal settlements, and or to contribute to unassigned fund balances or undesignated fund balances. So the one I wanted to talk about a little bit is apply as matching funds towards other federal grants. So matching funds are defined as when you apply for a grant and they say they're going to give you, say, $1 million, but they want you to spend some of your money also on whatever project you're doing, of say 20%. So what they're saying is the federal government or state government will give you $1 million for a project or a program, but you need to spend 200,000 of your own money, so that effectively they're you spend 200,000 of your own money on this project, and the federal government will provide you with another $1 million. What this second bullet point says is we can't use this as those matching funds. In this example, the $200,000, we can't use any of this ARPA money as the matching funds to get other federal grants. Okay, so that's great. Those are all big categories, and it's kind of confusing. So what I've done is I've kind of listed some things that staff and city council have kind of talked about in the future, in the past, and we've talked about what it is, what we might do with it. And the point here today is really to get the information out to everyone so that you kind of have an idea of what the ARPA funds can be used for you to tell us here today what you would like the money to be used for, and we'll move forward from there. So the city has calculated that the revenue loss from COVID was only around $300,000, and that was mostly from sales tax. So we think, based on looking back at the last 6 years of sales tax receipts, that our revenues were impacted around $300,000. We've got really good records of that. And so we think that we can use of this 4.1 million just to backfill city revenues around $300,000. The big item that we've talked about is improvements to citywide infrastructure, specifically capital improvements that are required at the wastewater treatment plant. We have, for the past year plus, we have gone through the process of identifying issues with our wastewater treatment plant and actually our water system as well. And we've been told by experts that we are going to need, as well as with a lot of input from the State Water Board, that we are going to need to basically replace our wastewater treatment plant or our sewer plant within the next 5 to 6 years. The cost of that is going to be between $50 and $60 million. Luckily, the state understands that we are a disadvantaged community and that we just don't have $50 or $60 million laying around. So we are working on grants right now as we speak. In fact, we've identified grants that we're already kind of tapping into for the design and the environmental impacts for the initial studies for the wastewater treatment plant. What we're thinking is of around $4.1 million, that about half of it would go towards citywide infrastructure. 2 million of it towards the 50 to 60 million that it's going to cost. The other ways that we're going to raise money will be through grants. That'll be the bulk of it. It might be all of it. We don't know. But we think that we need to put some of this money into that. If we don't have to, that would be great. And we'd be able to have discretion over that 2 million if it does not get spent for the wastewater treatment plant. We'd also like to do updates to the city website to incorporate more virtual and multilingual services. Also enhancing the council chambers to accommodate hybrid, in-person, and virtual council and board commission meetings. So it's going to improve accessibility via our website as well as in the council chambers to public meetings. Now, we don't know exactly how much that's gonna cost, but we're saying 2.3 million out of the 4.1. In addition to the improvements to citywide infrastructure, we're looking at helping our economic development by potentially having a small business loan / grant program. We think $500,000 to help local businesses kind of recover and enhance their services so that more community members, and hopefully community members from outside of the city limits, actually do more shopping in Greenfield. Also, retail space strategic planning. This really means hiring a consultant, someone who's an expert at strategic planning related to economic development, a multi-year contract at some point to help us decide the best way to put everything together related to our commercial centers, which would be, at this point, it would mainly be El Camino Real corridor, as well as the Walnut Avenue specific plan. And then we've also got another bucket that we're just calling at this point direct community support. And we're looking at around $750,000. What would we do with, how would we spend that? Well, that's really, this is the bucket that I think people today can have an impact on. We've talked about support services for the homeless. Right now, there are grant monies that are available, although I think today those grant monies were, and all of the ideas that local agencies had submitted to the state were all summarily rejected by the governor. I'm not sure exactly why, but those monies I still think are going to be available for us. So there are some monies out there, but we're looking at potentially spending some of the ARPA monies on this. Hosting a small business resource and education center. So it's not a direct, it's really a direct support for those that want to get into business and helping people to start their own businesses. Enhance a summer youth employment / internship opportunity program, which is something that's been talked about for at least a couple of years. And we'd love to get high school kids involved and actually pay them and have them be interns, certainly at City Hall, but also for small businesses throughout the community. If you've got a small business where people can learn a trade, we hope that we can have some kind of opportunity that we can cost share for those internships so that kids can learn trades and we can help the individual small business owner along the way. We've also talked about supporting arts and entertainment venues and cultural activities. by renovating or rehabilitating the Greenfield Arts Center. Improvements to recreation areas. We had a very active workshop last night, listening session related to the soccer fields at Patriot Park. And we've also talked about baseball fields, and we're working with Little League now to improve those fields. But this is something that would, I believe, fall into the category of an acceptable distribution of these ARPA monies. Oops, that's all I got. So at this point, you've seen, I've broken it down into really, it's 4 buckets. One is to backfill the city revenues. One is the big number, improvement of citywide infrastructure. And then $750,000 on economic development, $750,000 on direct community support. There's nothing magical about any of these numbers. I mean, someone can say, I think that's all ridiculous. We got to spend $4.1 million on something. And what we will do at this point is we'll take the ideas and we will combine them with the ideas that we already have and run them by council. We will have at least one more public workshop to where we can all kind of get together and kind of come to, I don't want to say come to an agreement, but get as many good ideas about how to spend this money as possible. So at this point, Ed, do we have any online comments or in-house, either way?
Yeah. We have we know something about that or about, you know, maybe about that.
Okay, so I cannot hear, it sounds very muffled to me. So let's take a look at
Yeah, Paul. So we don't have anybody on Zoom.
Okay.
Um,
And then looks like we got a few people there in the audience.
yes.
So we can, if nobody's got input, then we can, I mean, these are basically staff ideas. We think they're pretty good, but we haven't really flushed out things like economic development. I mean, we think the small business loan and grant program and the strategic planning are really important because it should kickstart some activity downtown and anywhere else that there are people wanting to do business and needing a leg up. The big one, though, to me is what we do about the direct community support, because there are some of these, there are some of them that don't cost a lot of money. The hosting a small business resource education center, that's not going to be a big capital outlay. The internship opportunities shouldn't be big either. And the ones that will be is actually going through and rehabbing the arts center and the improvements to the recreation areas. The homeless services, like I said before, in talking with Supervisor Lopez last night, it sounded like Greenfield was earmarked to receive something in excess of $150,000 the first year for homeless support services, and then about $250,000 a year for the next two or 3 years. So it's not a small amount, but it's also not a big amount. So it's not like we're going to build a homeless center. What we'll probably do is put together a voucher program with hotels for temporary homeless, for the homeless, and have vouchers available and put together through our community outreach program, a way to contact these people and make sure that we have as many of these people know of the support services that are available. So it's more of an outreach effort. So
Yeah, Paul, we have a question.
Yeah.
Here in the audience.
okay.
Hi, my name's Ismael Valdez. And I'm homeless too as well. And I just want to bring up to the community that I have a few other issues that I wanted to address, a few ideas to betterment our community. I'm out here part of the what do you call it? The reentry program. And part of the reentry program is we commit ourselves to make a better community for ourselves, safety and security and safety and for the health and safety codes for food and what do you call it, other stuff. But also, is there any way that I know that right now the hotels are full, but being homeless out here is cold right now. Is there any way that we can open up a church or something we could all sleep in, or maybe possible rent out a house for us, or we could all live in and maybe be tested or whatnot? But it because it's cold out there right now, we're homeless and it's really bad.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Valdez, for coming up and asking. I don't know of any right at this minute. The city doesn't provide that, but we can, if you can let us know where you are, we can reach out and hopefully maybe get some blankets for you. We can talk to the hotel owners and see if there's anything available or when something becomes available.
Okay. Because I don't have no sleeping bag and also I don't have a tent. No, do I have anything to light a fire with or anything to be able to cook? I receive benefits from here, but I have a card from the hotel. I'm not sure if they have any type of opening or whatnot for homeless.
Mhm.
But if there's any way that you could help us out, maybe like a half of it, we could come up with half, maybe volunteer for in the community for the other half for rent. Maybe I could speak to the other rest of the homeless and we could help something out because we're not just trying to receive, we're trying to help out the community as well. If you help us out,
Right.
Even though we're not helped out, we're still gonna help them out.
Right. Okay, let me do this. Let me talk to, it's not going to help tonight, but I will talk with our coordinator for community outreach and find out if she can you either.
Yeah, Paul, actually, she's on in the meeting also, Fabiola.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Fabiola?
Yes, hi. I did want to ask Ismael
Yes.
if he can leave his contact information or come back tomorrow to the city hall during open hours, anytime before 4:30, and I'll give you some resources that would be able to help you.
Okay. I know the King City Resource Office, but we're not trying to go to King City because that's a whole different city and we grew up here and most of us like the city here because most of us were, you know, I'm a facility coordinator. I have my associates and I got kicked out from a program from Watsonville, California from 161 Miles Lane when she's a program 6 years ago. And since then, I lost contact with my family and I've been homeless and I grew up here. But I got this address though regarding travel in. It's here, it's located on 120 El Camino Real in Greenfield, California, 3927. The telephone number is 831-674-5816. And the fax number is 831-674-3661. The owner is Bong Yang Yo. And we'd like to see if we could get a room, even if it's 2 people for a room there. And I don't speak to the homeless, but I hang around with them because that's who we support each other. You know, the churches hand out food once a week here. And our EBT only lasts us maybe a week or 2. And by the end of the week, we have to ask people to buy us food and buy us stuff. And shelter is getting bad for us for the shelter for the winter. We've been looking for work. We applied already and we're waiting on responses. But and how I said, we're willing to meet you guys halfway. If you pay half for our rent, some of us are willing to to work for the community, maybe for the community in Greenfield Cemetery or wherever else, to be able to pay for the other half for you guys. If the community is willing to help us out.
Right, well, I think it's definitely worth a conversation, absolutely. So if you can you reach out to, come down and talk with Fabiola tomorrow?
Yes, so what time would that be?
Anytime between 9 and 4:30 tomorrow.
Okay, I'll be here tomorrow at 9.
Okay, perfect.
you.
I'll
Your
see
name
you at
was?
9.
What was your name again?
My name is Fabiola,
And your
and
name?
I'm sorry?
Oh, you're Fabiola?
Yes.
Okay, Fabiola, thank you. I really appreciate it. I have a couple of ideas and stuff that we might be able to beneficial for the community as well. If you need my certificates, I'm gonna be able to bring them in order to support us. But I've been through certificates where I'm a college student, universities and stuff like that, and I have a brighter, like I have a view for this community that it might help us out with after school programs and maybe like a safety and security for the youth and for the students after school programs and maybe for the science project. And maybe we could get like food bank here for the low income or just whoever needs it. I have the addresses and I'm willing to put the footwork in if I'm willing to get heard. Even if I'm denied at last, but I just want to be able to share what I have.
Great, that's awfully nice. That's awfully nice of you. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Fabiola.
Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll definitely talk about your ideas. Thanks, Ismael.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, if we don't have any more comments, this obviously isn't the end of this, because council's gonna want to hear, and we don't, like I said, we don't have to come up with a plan right now, but there are deadlines related to it, and we want to make sure that the public has its input. So we will have at least one more ARPA allocation meeting. We'll go from there. All right. So if that is it for tonight, that's great. Thank you for being here, and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.